we've made a lot of videos about Microsoft Power BI and Fabric on this channel, but we haven't made one quite like this. Today we are going to be talking about deployment pipelines in Microsoft Fabric and Power BI. So, welcome back to my video series where I'm making a video every single day studying for the DP600 Analytics Engineer exam. And today we're going to be talking about deployment pipelines. So let's jump in. So here I am inside my Microsoft Fabric UI. I'm currently on the Microsoft Fabric trial, which I have 48 days left, as you can see. And I've gone ahead and I've created two workspaces within my Microsoft Fabric capacity. I've created a developer workspace, which currently has nothing in it. And then I have created a production workspace, which also currently has nothing in it. Now, I am going to create a deployment pipeline. So what is a deployment pipeline? Well, a deployment pipeline lets you move objects from one workspace into another. Simply put, it's meant so you can develop and you can test in one workspace, and then all without affecting your production workspace. So the way you do this is you create a workspace for each and every single environment you want to have, and then you can move those objects between these environments using things called pipelines. So let's go ahead and let's create this. So I'm going to go ahead and click these little three dots right here, and then I'm going to click deployment pipelines. And finally, I'm going to create new pipeline right here. I'm going to name this pipeline of mine video example. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click next. Now you can have multiple stages. So like you could hypothetically, right, have as many stages as you want in this pipeline. Actually, never mind, you can only have 10 stages. I've never used that many. But for the simplest setup that you could have, which is all we're going to be using for this in this video, is I'm just going to create a development branch and then a production branch. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click create. Finally, I'm going to choose my workspace for my development branch as developer. And then I'm going to choose my workspace as my production space as production. I'm going to hit assign workspace and assign workspace. As you can see, what it'll now do is it'll go ahead and it will compare these two workspaces. I can edit this stage. I can make it public. I can provide descriptions. And in production, I can also edit it and I can provide descriptions. Finally, one additional thing I can do in production is I can create deployment rules, which would essentially allow me to pass things like parameters. And then right here, I can compare the two different settings. So let's go ahead and let's publish up an object for me to deploy. So I am going to go ahead and I am going to go over here and I'm going to open up a dashboard that I previously made, and maybe one that you've seen an example of before. And that's my color picker dashboard for my most recent Power BI tutorial. So I'm going to wait for it to open up. Then once it's opened up, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to hit publish. And finally, once it's published, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to publish it up into my developer workspace. Okay, so here we are. It's now publishing. If we give it a second. And let's go back into our capacity now. If we now go all the way back over here into our deployment pipeline, you'll notice it now has noticed that there's changes. So if we scroll on over, we can see there's now somewhere in here. I guess you can't actually see it, but you'd be able to see all of the changes. So if I click right here, compare, it'll show me that color picker semantic model is new. I can go over here, right, and I can access these settings, and then color picker reports over here. So I can now go ahead and I can now hit deploy, and I can add a note and say deployed because report was just uploaded. Okay, and I can go ahead and I can click deploy. And finally, it'll go ahead and it'll copy all of this content into this new workspace. So let's wait. And here you are. And you'll see it will now have copied all of this content. So there we go. It was a successful deployment. Now, if I go over here as you can see, I can now create rules for the semantic model. So I can create rules about reports that need to be connected. And if I had any parameters in this data set, I could go ahead and I could set those parameters. So like if I click here, right, I could say, hey, you need to update this data source from this dev environment to this production environment, so on and so forth. So yeah, that's deployment pipelines. And you might be asking yourself, so this looks like a lot of extra trouble. Why do it? And the answer is because when you're dealing with things at an enterprise level, you often need to test the stuff. And when you need to test stuff, like sometimes it's just it's easier to have something like this that allows you to move things and connect things easily and simply. All right, so just before we go, I'm going to go ahead and I am going to make one single change to my my color workspace here. So I'm going to open it and I am going to go edit it and I am going to add in a table. And in this table, I'm going to bring in all of my different color names. So as you can see, I've just selected turquoise. And finally, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit save. All right, if I now go over here, back into my deployment pipeline, so go back into my video example right here, okay, and I refresh this, what you'll notice is that it should pick up on the change that I just made. So here we go. If I go in to compare changes, right, it's automatically noticing that they are different. And because I don't have these two environments deployed in Git, I can't flag the change. But what I can do is I can go ahead and I can hit this deployment button. And when I click, it'll now sync over. All right, so that is deployment pipelines in Microsoft Fabric. I've hoped you learned something. If you have any questions or feedback, let me know in the comments. And for the last person that commented that my video is too quiet, hopefully this is much louder. Thank you for watching. Bye.